Hello, true believers. This is Doc Hogg, and welcome to episode 18 of Comics and Variety. Okay, today I just want to get straight to it. Sunday evening, I interviewed Zain Shenwari, who is author of The Elemental Balance. You can still purchase The Elemental Balance on Indiegogo, and there is also a preview of it that you can take a look at. I will provide links to both of those in the description below. Okay, let's get to the interview. I am very pleased to have with me today Zain Shenwari, who is the owner, proprietor of InZain Comics. Is that correct?
That's right.
All righty. He has just released on Indiegogo issue 4 of The Elemental Balance, and you can not only order that, you can order the first 3 issues, which I've done. He's been nice enough to give me a preview, and I think it's well worth your money and your time to do so. For all 4 viewers of Comics and Variety, Zain, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, sure. Yeah, like you mentioned, like David mentioned, that my name is Zane, and I've been making comic books, or at least writing this specific series for the past 2 years or so. And I actually worked in oil and gas in a corporate job, and I just felt like we're going through layoffs and stuff like that. So I was like, it's one of those moments where you feel like I want to do something with my life that I enjoy for once, rather than getting caught up in money and this and that. So I just left it all to make comics. Call me crazy.
Well, I think a lot of people in the comics industry are, one or two pancakes short of full stack. So, for all those hot Comic-Con chicks, are you spoken for?
I am. I'm married. That's right.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, girls eat your hearts out. All righty. Well, how's your wife enjoying your new profession?
She was the one who encouraged me to do it. She's not much of a she doesn't care for comics.
She must have a few less pancakes in her stack than you do. Don't tell her I said that, please.
Yeah. So, but when we first met, like I told her this entire story instead of a pickup line, and I don't know if it was like a nervous take or something, but we sat there for like about 30, 40 minutes, and I basically pitched her an idea of a story I had, and she loved it so much. That's how we met.
Wow.
And that story, you probably see me have glimpses of it here and there. It's called Game Plan.
Okay.
And so it's a very unorthodox story when it comes to comic books. But, if it's a story, I mean, I think unorthodox is good because,
sure.
Which tries something different. So, yeah, but she's encouraged me throughout this whole process.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to try that on the next woman that I'm interested in. I got a high school reunion coming up soon, so I might have to give that a go.
Yeah.
I'll let you know how it works. All right, tell me why you got into comics. I mean, have you always been interested in them? Are you a bit of a comic book geek? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. When I was really young, I remember my father taking me to this comic book store where they sold used comics. And I remember getting a collection of different comic books. But I think maybe those used comic books were like not the primary comics that were selling a lot. They're probably like the ones that people don't read. I'm not really sure. I was too young. But the comic book that I received, that originally when I got it, I was disappointed because it was a Spider-Man comic book.
Mm-hmm.
When I read it, there was like barely Spider-Man in it. It was about Spider-Man was like in the background, and it's from the perspective of this burglar. And as you got to the end, you realized that he was actually on the side of Spider-Man because Spider-Man helped him when he was vulnerable because he had a child and helped him. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was such an interesting dynamic because I went in there thinking of the stories about Spider-Man, and it just kind of changed my whole perspective on how to tell stories. Like stories can be from different perspectives. Mm-hmm. So it kind of started from an early age for me to kind of get into comic books. And actually I tell this story to everyone, and it's a true story. I mean, it's may sound a little cliche, but actually when I was I don't know if I was 10 or something, or my teacher gave us an assignment to make a signature to like a professional signature. I made mine into like a cartoon monster, like Z, and then I kind of curved it, made it into an S, and the S makes the jaw. And so that became my signature. And so, down the road when I was working on gas and we're going through layoffs and whatnot, so I was signing a contract and that was my professional signature. Someone's like, what is this? And it's like all those things that I was like, one thing led to another for me to, get to where I'm at right now. But it reminded me of who I wanted to be as a child and, those child memories and whatnot. So I actually, in order to honor that, I made that into my company logo. So if you see that little skull thing on top of InZain Comics, that's actually my signature.
Oh, very good. Very, very good. Um, okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, uh, your new comic, The Elemental Balance. Give us a little bit about what the story is about.
Yeah, so the story is basically about this girl named Chloe who's inquiring about elements. And so initially, you don't know why she's doing that. It's just a very generic kind of story. And as you go further down in chapter one, you realize that something happened in her life that changed her and made her into a water elemental. And so she's been having these visions that's been connecting her to the other elementals. And she's a person who believes that things happen for a reason. So she wants to be proactive about it and find out why this happened. So that it's a journey about her. And somewhere in the midpoint, we realize that the story takes a turn. And that's when we really find out what is the meaning behind elemental balance. Because the title itself is a plot twist. Mm-hmm. And so we find out what that means, and then we realize what the story's about. But as of what we're reading right now, it's the journey of Chloe, essentially.
Okay, okay. I'm going to actually put this in full screen here. Hang on just a second. I think that's better. Okay. Now, tell us a little bit about Chloe. I mean, what is her character arc in the story?
So Chloe, basically, there's a lot of things that happen in chapter two when you guys read into that, because the way I started off chapter one was almost like it felt like it's in the middle. It's in the middle of what's happening. So we're going to do a little bit of time jump back into finding out what led Chloe to who she is and how she's become. And it's really a journey for her to change from what she was and to what she kind of becomes. And then, and with the story itself, we started learning these things. Like in the first chapter, we see that she breaks up with her boyfriend. Mm-hmm. It's a strong reason. All these things are character development to what we find out what happens later on. And here's the fundamental thing that I want people to kind of start noticing is that throughout the story, we're going to have these trend of emotions that people different people. There's another character named Baraka that we notice in chapter one, and you'll get to know him a little bit more and how he reacts to different situations. He's more careful and cautious, and he's always kind of like not the naysayer, but more like, hey, why don't we just like live our lives and not try to look into this and not poke into this. So we got different, personalities going there, but essentially we're going to find out that things that Chloe did and her curiosity, and that leads to them being all the elementals being founded by, or the villain finds them, essentially. So we will get to meet the villain. There is a villain in the story.
Can you tell us anything about the villain?
So the villain has okay, so there's villains that you probably see in some of the classical stories that we've grew up with, where they want to, let's say, for example, destroy the world. Why? Because they want to destroy the world, or they want to conquer the world. Those villains never really, I never really connected with them, and I feel like we're now in this generation where almost like the villain is as important as the heroes of the story, and we want to know what is their purpose. And like, for example, when you think of Thanos, he makes an interesting character because he actually believes in his core what he's doing. So that, to me, seems more threatening, that someone who's a villain, but in their mind, they're not a villain, they're virtue. So when we meet our villain, we're going to realize that our villain thinks that whatever this person is doing is right. I'm trying to be gender neutral because I want to still keep the
okay, all right.
Fair suspense going, because I don't want to give away anything.
Okay, fair enough. So it's let me ask this: it's not one of the four water, fire, earth, and air. It's not one of the four elementals that ends up being the villain.
It could be.
That's a yes. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
It's a
Uh,
misdirection. I don't know.
all right, all right. No, that's good. All right, tell me, just tell us anything else about elemental balance that you want us to know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I'm taking a few risks. Um, I made the story to go in a very traditional way initially, and then it's going to start taking a twist and start challenging because this is my thought process when I was writing the story because the elements, the actual elementals are an excuse because I knew going into this, there's so many stories about the elementals. So it was very risky to write something about that again.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, the elementals are more of a byproduct, it's more of an excuse. And the excuse is that the elements represent matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have that aspect of things that we can see, but then there's other aspects that we can't see, like, for example, and not really the soul, but like more like intuition or decisions that we make, or
Mm-hmm.
like if we're all made from the same carbon material, why are we all so different? So I had a lot of these questions in my head of like, and then I started relating that to like how would that translate to powers? Like I don't know if you I used to hear these folk tales like that, like a mother when she would see her child, like she could pick up a car like
Oh,
that.
sure, sure.
Or they say that the mind
Well, that
restricts
that
you.
that was the whole basis for the old. I don't know. You may be a little too young to remember this. The Incredible Hulk series that was on TV in the late '70s and early '80s. That was the whole basis of that TV show. Is that David Banner couldn't save his wife when she was trapped in a car, but he found other people who could lift up the car, and so he wanted to improve his strength and accidentally bombarded himself with gamma radiation. So, oh yeah, that story's been around a while, but it's good that you're picking up on that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
definitely. Like it's those fun things, and a lot of that kind of gets inspired by, with the Green Lantern, the Lantern Corps. I mean, they are all based on emotions, essentially, right? Like the
sure,
willpower, and this and that. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. I think it's fun. It's fun to play with those things.
yeah.
So,
Okay. Any new projects that you have in development? I mean, you mentioned one earlier. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that and anything else that might be coming down the pike? Whatever you feel free to feel comfortable revealing.
yeah, sure. So game plan. Actually, I can actually show you the poster. Give me one sec.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's a poster of game plan.
Ha ha! Very nice. Now
And
that
so
is interesting.
this was the story that I told my wife when I met her. And basically, the story is a very it's from a perspective of a girl from India who loves cricket. So it kind of goes from the sports theme, comes to the U.S. and meets a guy who is a football player, an American football player. His origins are happen to be Indian, but he's everything about him is American. And so it's this girl who kind of struggles with thinking that he's not proud of his heritage, but in reality is he doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
He's as American as he can get.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, and so it becomes this, and there's more to this story because there's something that we find out in the middle that he has a secret. He has a very dark secret, and
Dark secrets are always good.
yeah, like nothing evil. This story is more like a drama type. It's not
Okay.
like he's got superpowers or anything like that. Nothing's going to come up like that. But
Ah.
it's something where it's one of those things where you see a guy with fame, and you think his life is perfect,
Oh, sure.
but then when you really go into his life, you realize it's nothing but perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
anyways, it's a fun story. Like it's an emotional story, but it's a story of hope, and it ends off with hope, and it. And one of the things that, and I don't have any kind of like motive of putting diversity like forcefully into my stories. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like
Mm-hmm.
that, but this will like kind of address almost, when you start reading it, you'll forget about like if this has anything to do with diversity or anything like that, because those certain things start to not matter anymore. It's about the story. So anyways,
Well, no, I
yeah,
mean, there's diversity, which is different people and their perspectives and their experiences, and then there's diversity politics, which says
yeah,
everybody has to be represented. The latter, it very quickly becomes tiresome. The former, makes for great stories. So,
exactly.
Okay. Anything? Oh, let me ask. When are we going to be able to purchase that on Indiegogo? Do you think?
So this one's going to come out as a full graphic novel. So it's not going to come out in single issues. I'm hoping for it to be out by the end of the year.
All right.
Um, I have an artist for it. We've already started working on it. We've got 3 pages in. Um, I do have a plan on trying to at least pitch this one to Image Comics.
Oh, all right. Well, good
And
luck.
yeah, and we'll see what happens because that's their requirement is 5 pages. And then I actually am working on another one that you guys will be able to see on Indiegogo called The Lost King.
Okay.
And The Lost King is a very Game of Thrones type of story. It's
Mm.
about this. In the very first pages, you're going to see that there's a kingdom that's being attacked by an army of dead. And so you get that very Game of Thrones, but then it turns into something else, of
Yeah.
course.
So
But,
for
so that's
for people who in a couple of weeks will be going through some very serious withdrawal, you can at least supply some methadone type of.
yeah. Here, check this out. This will give you some extra feedback to that. And by the way, I'm doing something kind of interesting though. The Lost King, the Elemental Balance, and then there's another story called Humanimal Instinct. I have about like a list of 6 stories that I'm going to try to create. They're all going to be connected in the shared universe in slight ways. I mean, you can still read each story individually and not feel like you're missing out on anything. But if you read it all, you're going to get a little bit of Easter eggs on every one of them. So it's all mapped out. So, anyways,
Outstanding. No, hey, I think that's outstanding. Okay, let's move on to a somewhat different, a slightly more general topic. It seems to me that comics on Indiegogo are really, really taking off, and we've seen at least some of the people with the really big, YouTube channels. They're ending up with, every time they throw out something, it's 6 figures, which of course, all of us, hope to achieve someday, of course. What do you think? I mean, first of all, why do you think that is? I mean, why are Indiegogo comics seem to be, just if not quite in a full blown rage, if you will, certainly they seem to be on that kind of trajectory.
I think there's several reasons for that, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I think comic fans in general are kind of annoyed of what the mainstream is doing. And so they're just finding another avenue. And then there's these creators that have kind of created, are able to fill that void in. And so I think that's one reason is that now there are customers that are looking into, these indie comics. And it's really interesting because, you start to hear slowly, you're hearing more and more people that are driving towards that. And in fact, I'm also even hearing like writers from Marvel Comics and other major from DC Comics that are leaving to start their own indie comics.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a market that's being developed, and Indiegogo is a big avenue, for creators to showcase those comics. But definitely, I think those people who have those YouTube videos and have like 1,000 subscribers or whatnot, they tend to do a lot better than any other avenue. At least that's what it's been from what I've been looking at. But yeah, I think there's a shift happening. I don't know how drastic is it going to be. Is it going to mean that the DC and Marvels of the world are going to become the next typewriter? I don't know. I don't know how drastic it's going to be, but there is an interesting shift happening.
Yeah, there is. What do you think the future is on that? I mean, do you think that's just going to continue to grow? Do you think maybe eventually the traditional comic companies are going to wise up and start trying to co-opt some of those people? And I know that's very crystal ballish, but if you want to give it a shot, go ahead.
I think they are definitely going to try, but timing is going to be the factor of it, because if they take too long to that, they might miss the ballpark. But, from my experience and just from what I've been looking at and I think this is the next thing, and not just speaking from a comic creator standpoint, but it's this, like, indie comics have changed everything, because what's happening even in the movie industry or in like Netflix. I mean, Netflix bought out a comic book company, with the Kick-Ass, I'm forgetting what, I think it was Miller Comics. They bought that out, and think about it from a person who makes movies. When you pick up a comic book, it has panels, it has camera angles. You have basically a script along with, a sketched out, version, along with what they're following. And it's less riskier to produce a comic book than to produce a brand new story on a TV show or on a movie.
Oh yeah.
Why not go with something that's already proven some results
Oh
and
yeah.
then on that? I mean, and you also get audience feedback. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a no brainer, And I think that's where the shift is happening. So even if they're not indie comic creators, anybody who wants to submit a script to Hollywood, I don't think they can submit just a script anymore. I think those are going to get thrown in the trash. You're going to have to basically submit a graphic novel with images and everything.
Interesting. Huh. Yeah, I hadn't really considered that, but that is, that certainly makes a lot of sense. That may be where, yeah, why not go with what's proven, and when Jawbreakers is breaking 400K, sooner or later you got to figure Hollywood is going to come, or at least, well, I don't know about Hollywood. They may not like Richard Meyer's politics that much, but someone eventually might.
I think there's a change coming there. I really genuinely think, and you know who's weirdly unifying all of us, and we might even talk about this a little later. I think Brie Larson is kind of.
Oh, let's talk about that right now. Before I was watching the interview with Chris Hemsworth, with Don Cheadle, with Jeremy Renner obviously does not like her one bit. I mean, his body language. If he wants to hide stuff in the future, he needs to take some graduate courses in body language, because could it be any more obvious?
It was satisfying to see that. I mean, I was really satisfied to watch that, and I am really glad that now people and actors from Hollywood are standing up. Some people are still caught up. It's going to take time. It's not going to be overnight, but Brie Larson's created big, I don't know if there's an actual statistic, but I'm pretty sure she's the most hated person right now in Hollywood. And I can't back that, or maybe it's just a group I hang out with. I don't know, but
she still might be running second to Harvey Weinstein. But she's her whole attitude. I mean, she's it does make one thing I do wonder is how much money Captain Marvel lost because of her attitude. I mean, I know it made oodles of money, but you got to figure there's a few $100 million in there that it didn't make, and maybe I'm wrong on that, but there's a few $100 million that it didn't make because of the number of people it alienated. I mean, I know my friend Jeremy Lott, as far as I know, he didn't go see it. He's a big comic book lover. He's the one doing Movie Men right now, and he was just fed up with her and didn't go see it. So and presumably he would have taken his wife, and so that's but you don't know. But
also, here's the thing that I think. So first of all, it's not the first female movie. I don't know why she keeps on claiming that. And then second of all, it's not that people are coming to see her. It's people who are loyal to the MCU.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like we've dedicated our lives to this. And they've basically made it like as if you don't watch Captain Marvel, you're going to miss out the whole story on Endgame. It's a business tactic, and I get it. Everybody, I would do it. I would do the same thing, right? If I were in their position. But the thing that I'm getting really worried about right now is I'm really looking forward to watch Endgame. But the way all the actors are around Brie Larson, I just can't. I feel like they're going to make her the main person in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, I'm going to be super annoyed. It's not just because, it's Brie Larson, but those guys are potentially going to be exiting the MCU. It needs to be about them. It needs to honor them. It's their graduation. That's how I feel.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, well, she's in it. I mean, they're bringing her in it. She's going to play a very, very big role. They're not, they're not releasing the Captain Marvel movie and then putting her in it in the Avengers movie 2 months later just because they need an extra character. And that's unfortunate.
I mean, they're passing torch to her, so
yeah, and I mean it's it's like you're passing the torch to someone who's essentially a big bucket of water. I mean, it does really worry me that the MCU is going to try to build stuff around her, and I just don't think I think you're right. I mean that Captain Marvel movie was riding the huge wave of success that the previous MCU has had for the most part.
Right.
And I think had that movie come out prior to Iron Man of 2008, it probably would have done okay. It probably would have made its money back, some profit, but it would not have come anywhere near the box office amounts that it made at the box office. And the character to me was just so bland, and she played it so bland. That I just don't see how you build a movie franchise around her. She's not like Tony Stark, who, Robert Downey Jr. made Tony Stark and Iron Man very interesting from the beginning. You wanted to go see the next MCU movie.
Just liked the way, like, the demeanor, yeah.
And that the whole first Avengers film, there was chemistry between basically 6 actors in that movie. It made you want to go see the next one. I mean, I don't hear a big buzz out there for the very next Captain Marvel movie.
Maybe the next Spider-Man. That's probably the only MCU movie I'm going to be looking forward to watching. But I think unless MCU changes, I don't think I'm going to watch it. And I went into Captain Marvel, and generally speaking, with kind of taking off my "This is Brie Larson" glasses, I thought it was an okay movie. I actually kind of enjoyed it too, with the scrolls and the stuff that they came up with. But it was the stuff that she said, and it makes you realize that it really does matter who's playing the character, because you can go in a movie with a preconceived notion, because if you just don't like a person, it's really hard to enjoy that.
Oh yeah, it is. It is.
You
really have to work at pushing all your biases aside that much more than you usually do to watch a movie like that. And at some point, that can just become overwhelming if the lead actor is out there doing her best to alienate what is potentially her big fan base.
Exactly.
Let me ask this, because left-wing politics has moved so much into the comic book industry, and let me back up by saying that it's not necessarily bad to have some politics in comic books. I mean, if you read, the comic book Civil War, right? It's basically a pro-gun control allegory, but there is a good story there. You kind of overlook the politics to read a very good story there. But since then, the politics has leaked more and more to the point that it is affecting the story, that there isn't very good stories. There are not really interesting characters. All the characters, get along now, which, makes it uninteresting. I'm just wondering if the movies are going to start heading in that direction, because there's been little hints of politics in the movies, nothing too overt. You kind of have to really look for it to see it. But it was, far more overt in Captain Marvel. And not just because Brie Larson, promoted it that way. I just, I don't really want to see, the next Spider-Man movie be an allegory for, abortion or whatever. I mean, I don't know, but I just look. You pay, movie tickets. You pay a lot for that, and you go in. You want to just escape for 2 hours. You don't want a ton of politics shoved down your throat.
Exactly. To me, it doesn't even matter what side of the spectrum you're on. You just want to get away from that. And to me, I agree with you. Here's the difference, right? This is the difference, at least I see. If you have a story and that's your primary, and there's politics that are basically that kind of support the story, that's one thing. I'm okay with that. But then if there's politics and there's a story trying to support the politics, and to me, the biggest offender of that is Supergirl. I mean, I just quit watching Supergirl. I gave it a shot because of watching Flash and Arrow, but Supergirl was embedded with that, and I quit it. I just couldn't watch it anymore. I mean, I was just super annoyed about it. Yeah. It didn't become a story. It didn't become a story anymore. And they try to change the music and try to make you sympathetic towards it. Here's the thing: in any situation, you can't create things all one-sided, and and at least comics was that space, or like story entertainment was that space that was a unbiased middle ground fantasy, nothing really that much related to the real world. You'll use some inspiration with the real world, but it was not that dominant, and now it's changing.
Yeah, I mean, I got to give the folks in the MCU a lot of credit for what they did with Captain America: Civil War, because they gave both sides their due in that movie. You know, you saw the perspective of both sides, as opposed to the comic book, which doesn't give Captain America's side much due at all. It's very much pro Tony Stark's side, and again, it wouldn't be so bad, but give Captain America his due a little bit. You can even have a story that is a pro-gun control allegory, but give them their due, the other side its due a little bit. And again, to Mark Millar's credit, there is still a very good story in the comic book. But unfortunately, the lesson that too many people took from that is, we can do politics and not worry as much about the story. No, doesn't work.
Yeah.
All righty. Anything else you want to let our viewers know before we move on?
No, just that I encourage you guys to visit our Indiegogo, check out all the different rewards we have. We have actually completed Chapter 4, and it's at the printer. So everything is like, next month, as soon as Indiegogo is done, we'll be able to ship out the comics.
Awesome. That sounds great. I'm looking forward to getting mine, and we will provide a link in the description when I post this video. So, okay, let's move on. And that music means it is time for Hogg's headlines, all the news that Doc Hogg cares to report on. Zain, God, I did that the other day in a video, called you Shane because of your last name. I did it again. Zain is going to join me today, thankfully. Alrighty, Dateline, glutton for punishment. Man sees Captain Marvel 116 times to break Guinness World Record. I guess my question here is, why? Why this movie? Why not,
I read later down in the post, he said he would never do that again. And apparently he's won different records.
Well, yeah.
So been that unbearing.
Well, yeah, that's the thing I noticed here. This man's name is Steve, I think it's Rappel, but it might be Ruppel, of Weston, Wisconsin. Actually, the next story is from Wisconsin, too. I guess the cheese and the beer are doing something up there. But I guess this is kind of the answer to the why. Ruppel has 4 Guinness World Records to his name, including running a half marathon while wearing the most number of shirts. And the fastest time to drink 1 liter of gravy. And the minute is 1 minute, 12.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he's a little off there, but I mean, who could go to see 100? I'm sitting there and I'm watching it. All right. I'm 10 minutes in and I'm figuring, okay, this isn't so bad. Half an hour in, I'm like, oh God, there's another 90 minutes of this. I have no desire to rent it on Amazon or when it comes out. I have no desire to rewatch it. This guy did 116 times.
My gosh.
I mean, Jesus.
My gosh.
I mean, if he's into S&M, is he the S or the M? He's the M. God. Disturbing. All righty. Moving on here. Dateline, All in the Family. Chaos at Walmart as woman performs karate. Son exposes himself. Dog steals food, police say. Chaos descended at a Eau Claire, Wisconsin Walmart store Wednesday night after a karate-performing mother, her naked son, and their belligerent dog shoplifted and ran amok in the store.
That sounds like a plot for a comic book, guys.
Well, I like the belligerent dog. I mean, that would be the name, a good name for a comic title, don't you think? But how is a dog belligerent? I mean, just.
I mean, I wonder if that was part of the strategy. Okay, son, you go flash these customers.
Well, the dog was the only one who got off, and I mean, these people. See what is this? Her name, Lisa Smith, 46. Did you take a look at the picture, by the way, of this woman? Does she look 46?
I didn't see a pic. There was a picture.
Yeah, there's a picture of her in the article. I mean, flip the numbers around 64 and maybe you're closer. I mean, if she's 46, wow. I mean, what a life. I mean, the last couple of weeks I've been thinking about, are there any women out there that I would not want to see play Captain Marvel, in place of Brie Larson? And I think I may have found one now. I mean, good God. Okay, so let's see. Police learned that Smith came into the shop with bow and leash, with the dog immediately running off towards customers while the woman was pulling apart displays in the store and placing them in her cart.
Hey, the title should have just been "Another Day at Walmart."
Yeah, it makes you wonder if it's going to end up, if there'll be images on the Walmart People website. I'd like to see those. Now let's see. Her raucous son, yeah, raucous. That's the right name, right? Meanwhile, right adjective. Meanwhile, was getting fully naked and began exposing himself to other customers at the store. He then tried to cover himself with new clothes from the store without intending to pay for them, police said. Well, if the intent was to shoplift here, I don't
There's other ways.
Oh man, I'm guessing both of them were on some drugs because that's it. Maybe the dog was too.
Maybe the dog was the normal one trying to get out
of it. I don't know if he might have been not belligerent. He might have been, sad. Oh, please have mercy on me. Take me home with you. Get me away from these people. Alrighty, I think that's all for now. Zain, thank you very much for joining us today, and good luck with Elemental Balance. And yeah, that's all for Comics and Variety today. I will see you soon with new content.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you.